There is one main reason that people avoid speaking in front of others like the plague, and it may not be what you think. So today we're going to look at how we can actually remove that issue in 3 steps. Today we're talking about public speaking and avoiding it, what you can do to not avoid it. I'll see you in a sec. Good morning. Today's topic is how to control your voice to sound more confident even when you're nervous. Now, the reason that we're speaking about this because this is the number one issue that all people have when it comes to public speaking, whether that be in a meeting at work, or whether you are avoiding being on the camera for promoting your business, or whether you're on a big stage or avoiding being on a big stage speaking at a conference. Most people, they avoid public speaking because they're nervous. They don't like the way that their voice sounds when they're nervous. It's all shaky and out of control. So we've really got to fix that issue first before we can actually gain skill as a public speaker. Now, hi, if you're tuning in for the very first time today, my name is 𝐤𝐫𝐽𝐵. I'm an executive voice and presentation coach, and I teach public speakers, coaches, corporate presenters, people from all walks of life to speak with confidence, clarity, and conviction. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're a corporate leader and need to sound like it at work to get that promotion, or whether you are a business owner and really need to get on camera or on a podcast to promote your business, or perhaps you want to be a public speaker and do a TED Talk or a keynote speech of some sort. All of those people are going to face nervousness. So we have to be able to smash that out of the park first, because otherwise you're never going to reach your goal. You're going to think the thoughts that keep you stuck. You're going to speak the words that keep you stuck, and you're going to use those behaviors that keep you stuck. So we're going to dive straight into the biggest issue here that we're looking at is nerves and anxiety. Now, we all know that nerves and anxiety come from our psychology. I'm here every week talking about mindset and psychology around speaking because it's the biggest thing that holds people back. Believe me, I've worked with really high-end clients from all over the world, and I can teach you really good voice skills. Whether you're a singer, an actor, or a speaker, I can remove a lot of issues around voice problems specifically. But if your problem is more psychology, and so therefore you ramble, then I can't fix your psychology without your permission. I can't help you change that mindset and psychology without you being willing to do the work. So we can fix all the aesthetics and the voice issues with just a few tweaks. I did a master's degree in voice. I've done singing and acting for 35 years. I really understand voice, the vocal instrument, to a very deep degree. But the thing is that people don't do the work. And it's not because it's not possible. Believe me, I can teach anyone to sing. I can teach anyone to have a beautiful sounding voice and become a very powerful speaker. But if you won't do the work because your mindset sets you off or your anxiety holds you back, you're never, ever going to make the sounds I ask you to make. So let's dive into today removing this issue. This is the very biggest issue that we all have around being seen and heard, whether that's on camera, on podcast, or on stage, or even having a difficult conversation with your partner, or a difficult or crucial conversation at work. Many people avoid conflict. I used to do that too, but the more you avoid something, the bigger it gets in your mind. A small molehill that could have been fixed by an open and honest conversation has now become a massive mountain, and now you don't talk to that person for decades. It's a waste of time and energy to avoid those confrontational moments, because we all have to have difficult conversations in life. And if you follow these 3 steps today, then you will absolutely be able to do that or get on stage and speak. Now, let's dive into the very first thing. This is what happens when we have nerves and anxiety, and it's absolutely going to sabotage your speaking performance, whatever that is. Shallow breathing. This is the biggest thing that I see with all of my clients. When we're shallow breathing, we actually see very clearly this up here. So it's called, in voice circles, it's called clavicular breathing. When we're breathing from the clavicular, the bone here, the collarbone, we see the collarbone rising and falling like this. This is the narrowest part of the lungs. If you're expecting to be a good actor, speaker, or singer in complete control and you're clavicular breathing, it's not ever going to work out well, because you're going to sound breathy and breathless and puffy. I've got a bit of dyslexia and sometimes my words come out backwards, but it is what it is. So what I want to say to you today is, when we do that, it's going to throw us off immediately. So we've got to learn different breathing skills, which we're going to dive into today. Now, also, because of the lack of airflow to the brain, because you're breathing from the narrowest part of the lungs, you're now going to forget everything that you wanted to say. You have nothing left in your brain because you go, and you have to come up with something. Every single time you're nervous, the words are just going to fly out of your mind. It's what happens every time. It happens to all of us in the best of times. Even when we're slightly distracted, then we've got to get ourselves back on track. We forget the words that we're going to say. And then this is the worst part for many people, and why they avoid public speaking is because their voice shakes so much that when they're nervous, they can hear it, they can feel it. And they know very well that the audience is hearing that as well. And they know that that person is nervous. Yeah, it's like this catch-22. We know that we're being caught out from being nervous, and we know we feel nervous, but we can't change it. And so there's this big vicious circle that goes on. It's horrendous, and it's really tiresome. Now, you'll notice too that the more that happens, the less you want to speak. You're going to avoid public speaking like the plague if your voice is shaky and you keep forgetting the words. And then last but not least, this is a huge problem for all of my beginner clients, is that your throat closes up and it feels like you're choking yourself. So we've got to get rid of all of those things first. So nerves and anxiety are the first things that we have to knock out of the park. So let's look at very quickly today. And you can watch this. If you're watching on the replay, please say hello and ask any questions that you want. I always come back to my channel and check the questions later on during the week. So if you've got any questions, or if you're here, please say hello. I would love to see some comments coming through so I can see that you're actually getting some value out of today's class. So we're going to look now at 3 steps to control your voice when you're nervous. Now, believe me, I have had a lot of experience at this, because I've been on stage in front of people, I'd say since I was 11 years old. Now, in the grand scheme of things, when I was a kid, I thought that was old, because all of my friends had already been doing performance and dancing and singing and stuff since they were 3 or 4. So I got a bit of a late start. But even at 11, I was hideously nervous. I was so anxious and nervous. I just literally wanted to die on those stages half the time. I could barely control myself. So I had to really learn things 100 times more than the other kids, because I was so nervous and anxious, and it was sabotaging a lot of my performances right through until I was well into my 20s. It was quite tough on my psychology. So let's look at what we have to do. I wish that my teachers way back then would have taught me these simple things, because it's fine teaching you a skill, but if you don't know how to self-regulate, you're never, ever going to be a professional performer or a professional speaker, because self-regulation is first. There's no point in being an amazing speaker or an amazing singer if you can't sing in front of anybody because of your nerves, right? That's the situation that I was in. So I knew that by the time I got to a position in my life where I was like, I have to either really nip this in the bud or give up. So I decided that I'm going to push through and get the answers that I needed. So let's look at the very first one. The very first one is grounding the breath. Now, whoops, there's my camera gone. When we ground the breath, it's something that you'll hear me, if you're one of my students, you'll hear me say this a lot. When we ground the breath, we're taking the breath out of the clavicular area, out of the the shallow breathing area, and down into the lower lungs. So when we really breathe deeply into the lower lungs, we get plenty of air to be able to ride that beautiful phrase on. We can take a 1-second inhalation if we do it correctly, and then speak or sing for 30 seconds, no problem. But if you take a shallow breath from up here, I would run out of air before I even get to counting to 10. It literally is so narrow up here. You've got to be able to ground the breath. Now, to calm ourselves down and ground the breath, I'm going to show you a very simple trick. This is called the butterfly hug, and it comes from my beautiful friends at Paradise Kids and the Ian Maver Foundation. They help children really ground their energy and their nervous system after something, a big change has happened in their lives. Sometimes the kids have had a terrible trauma and their nervous system is really set off. So when I'm working with that charity, we have to work a lot with self-regulation of people, adults and children alike. So let's do this together. This is called the butterfly hug. You're going to cross your hands in front of you and you're going to put them up like this. And then you're going to put your hands here on your thymus gland. So when we actually become a little butterfly like this, I like to do it like this at the same time, the wings, both the wings flapping, but I've seen it done like this too. This is basically helping stimulate the thymus gland, which helps you feel more confident, and it helps you feel more calm and grounds the breath back to your diaphragm, not from here. You don't want to do that. You want to keep your shoulders down and breathe from your belly. That little thing just for a minute, it's amazing how calming it is, because when we have a hug from somebody, we actually feel a little bit more stable. We feel held. We feel safe. That's what we're trying to emulate here, is that safety. Now, the next part is to really get air into the lower lungs. We're going to do a little butterfly movement. Open the chest and blow out. So when we actually move our arms forward, so we're doing a butterfly like this, like a wing movement. When we do this, we're actually pushing the air out of our body using our accelerator pedal, which is our stomach muscle. And then when we're doing that, there's only one way that the tummy can go when you breathe in again, and that's to expand. So think of this: expand, contract, expand, contract. Let's do it together. Breathe in. Expand the belly, contract, expand the belly, contract, expand the belly, contract. That will get you much deeper into the lungs and help you understand that the body has to expand when the air goes inside, because your lungs have to get more air inside the lower lungs. So when you take a bigger breath, we get bigger, we get fatter, not skinnier. And when we blow the air out of our body, if we're expelling the air out of a balloon, of course, excuse me, the body is going to get smaller and the balloon is going to shrink. When we have air inside the body, we get big, then we push it out and we get small. Most people do this backwards. And this is a huge problem for many of my clients, is that they reverse breathe, which means that they do this. And then they push their belly out. Their belly pushes out the opposite way. The chest collapses to try to get the voice out. This is not a great way to breathe. It is the opposite way that you need to breathe, because it does not power the voice. There's no muscles up here to power the voice. This is all chest muscles up here. But your abdominal muscles, your six-pack rectus abdominis, are big muscles that can really power the sound and make it very, very strong. So we've got to ground the breath. Now let's go into the second point here. Identify the tension patterns. Now, most of the tension patterns that I see with my clients are in two places. They're here in the throat and here in the stomach. If you understand that that's where your tension is being held, then you can actually do something about it. So if you're, say, standing off stage or waiting for a job interview and you're feeling that tension starting straight away, I want you to do this. I want you to literally tense your muscles wherever that tension is felt as hard as you can. If it's in the throat, hold your throat. And then let it go. Squeeze. Let it go. because now you're back in control. Instead of your tension being here unconsciously being held in the body and creating a lot of problems for you, now you're actually releasing that tension on purpose because you want to. But we've got to understand where the tension is first. So if you squeeze your belly and then let it go, squeeze the belly and then let it go, then you'll understand the difference between tension and relaxation. Now, I know this sounds really simple, and it really is. But when we get stuck in our head and we're really nervous and really anxious, all these things go out the window. It's very, very hard to think properly when you're nervous or anxious. So we've got to be able to get rid of all of these patterns that are holding us back. The throat tension, the stomach tension, all of that is going to stop you from becoming a confident speaker. So we've got to first ground the breath with those 2 exercises, and then we've got to identify where those tension patterns are. So for me, it was always in the throat and it was always in the stomach. So my stomach would be so tight, it was actually making my throat tight. Try that yourself for a second. I want you to pull your tummy in and pretend that you've got a really tense, tight stomach. Do you notice that you're holding your breath? The second that you tense up your stomach like you're doing an ab crunch, you end up holding your breath. And if you're holding your breath, you can't really speak very well. It's going to strangle the sound. You certainly can't sing when you're holding your breath, because when you're speaking and singing, you're riding on airflow. The airflow is coming up and making the vocal wave work properly. So this, that beautiful vibration that we make here has to be powered by air. So if you're strangling yourself to death, of course you can't speak or sing. So the very first thing that I had to learn way back when was a silent in-breath. And that silent in-breath allows the whole pipe to open. I call it frog breath. Now, it's nothing to do with smelling like a frog. But if you imagine that you have a little green tree frog and you've got to get that tree frog all the way down into your stomach, and you have to have an open pipe all the way down because the tree frog is not allowed to touch the sides of that pipe. It has to go bump straight down into the stomach. If you imagine that your throat is open so much that the tree frog can go bump straight into the stomach, you'll actually feel your tummy move out of the way because you've taken a diaphragmatic breath. Your breath is so open, your channel is so open. Now you can get masses of air into your lower lungs in 1 second flat. You don't have to keep breathing all over the shop as a speaker. You really don't. If you take a silent inhalation, you have plenty of air in 1 second flat. No joke. The only time that anyone needs to take a bigger inhalation than 1 second is if you're an opera singer singing an aria, or you're a singer about to sing your last final note of the song and you want to hold it for 8 bars. Fine. Take a deeper breath in and take a little longer than 2 seconds to breathe in. Now, if you breathe in through your nose, a lot of people argue that you should breathe in through your nose. Oh, you're a mouth breather. Oh, you're a nasal breather. There's a lot of really ridiculous conversations going on about this on the internet. But have a think about this. When you're busy talking, how much time do you get in between sentences when you're pressing a point? You keep talking, right? You've got these things that you want to say. So if I breathe through my nose and then have to go to the next point, I have to take at least 2 to 3 seconds of a pause before I can actually get enough air through these tiny little spaces here before I can say the next phrase. Now, if I have a longer pause, I have plenty of time to do that. But a lot of the time when we're in a hurry and we're going through content, we take little snatch breaths through the mouth. There is nothing wrong with that as long as your throat is open. Now, yes, it does dry the vocal folds out a little bit more, but there's ways that we can mitigate that. And I teach all of that in my classes, in my VIP classes, and also in my group classes and my online courses. So you can learn any of these things, but you've just got to know understand the premise. The premise is we have to get our mind clear. And the way that we do that is to make sure that we're taking a proper diaphragmatic breath. So grounding the breath and identifying where that tension is, that's two parts of the same equation, but you have to do both. Ground the breath, identify where the tension is. Next, we're going to change our focus. So think about what you focus on when you're nervous. What are you focusing on? You're probably focusing on this. Oh, my throat is closing up. Oh, my voice is shaking. Oh, I'm forgetting what I wanted to say. Oh, I can't breathe properly. We're probably focusing on all of that because look, mindset is audible, as we know, right? Everything is a blueprint. Our mindset, or rather our voice, is a blueprint of what our mindset is actually doing, what our mindset is telling us. So all of these things are going to be a massive issue if your mindset is an issue. So when we're grounding the breath, it'll help us breathe more deeply and help us think more clearly. When we're identifying the tension patterns and letting go of that tension, then suddenly our voice can come out in a very different way. So now the final step is to change that focus, not from you. We've got to stop focusing on you because it's not about you. Stop being egotistical. Get out of your own way. It's not about you. It was never about you. Think about who you're talking to when you're on a camera or in front of an audience or doing a team meeting. Who are you talking to? You're talking to somebody else. You're talking for the benefit of somebody else. It's not about you. You're not a big superstar that's standing on that stage and everyone's staring at you, paid millions of dollars to get you there, and then expect this fabulous performance. We're not talking about that pressure here. We're talking about pleasing a crowd, or we're talking about teaching them something, inspiring them to action of some kind. That's what we're talking about. Let's go over to the comments and see if anyone's, oh, hello, Ryan. It's nice to see you here. Nice to have you here today. Hi. He's coming in from YouTube. It's lovely to have you here. So we're just about to finish today. So I'm sorry if you've missed this. Let me have a look. Hang on, where am I? Where the comments? Going to hide that again. Banner. So we went over the 3 steps to control your voice when you're nervous. If you missed any of the content and you're just chiming in, then make sure that you go back to the replay because this is a deep dive training on using these 3 steps to control your voice when you're nervous. We've talked about grounding the breath, identifying the tension patterns where they are and being able to release those, and then changing your focus. So we don't want to focus on us. You want to focus on one of 3 things. You can focus on the audience. So for example, if I was live, then this eye contact that I'm having with you on camera right now would be your eyes. And then I'd talk to the next person. And then I'd talk to the next person. And I'd talk to the next person at the back. I'm always going to be shifting my focus to the eyes, souls, hearts of another person. When you're on camera, you do exactly the same thing by looking in the camera. If I look down here and look at myself, then it doesn't feel to you, my audience, that I'm speaking to you. It feels like I'm speaking somewhere else because I'm not connecting with you. So we've got to really change our focus from us and how nervous we feel to what the goal is here. The goal is to teach that person something, to see their face change when they learn something that's very important. And the final thing is bring intention to your speaking. So for example, if you're coming into a work meeting, what's your intention that day? You really want to make sure that your boss knows that these are the numbers and your team is really on track this quarter. Do you want them to know that there's a problem, an issue that you need to solve? What is your intention for that speaking, for that conversation? Look, it's exactly the same when you're having a crucial conversation. If I've got a problem with somebody in my family, if there's an issue that needs to come up, we need to both have an intention to have a win-win situation, of course, and to come up with some solution that's going to solve the issue that's going on in the family. It's all about open and honest communication. It's all about connecting your heart to another person's heart because we're all human. We all have emotions and we all get triggered. All of us. We all have baggage. Every single person on the planet has baggage. The question is, how big are your bags? Because the bigger the bags, the more you'll avoid crucial conversations. But we've got to be able to shed layer by layer by layer, all those crappy layers that have been put onto us by domestication. We have to shed them and decide what is left for me. That is the way that I want to operate my life. Love, connection, acceptance of me and others. But it takes a long time and a lot of bravery to do that work. And that's a big part of what I do. Now, I know that as an executive voice coach, this seems very, very deep, but most of my clients, 95% of all my clients, we have to do psychology as well as voice, aesthetics of voice, fixing any voice issues that they have, like scratchy tone or a nasal tone or a throaty tone or something. All of those aesthetics need to be changed first. And then we look at the patterns of speech. In other words, how are we constructing our content for our audience? So all of that, it's a lengthy process. It doesn't happen in 2 seconds. And it certainly doesn't happen with just listening to information and expecting that learning is going to change your life. Learning doesn't change your life. Implementation of the learning changes your life. So I'm going to leave you with that there, because if you want to actually take action and do something about the issues that you have around public speaking and voice, then there's another opportunity to work with me. That'll be next week, which is different to my lives. There'll be no lives next week because we're going to be doing 2 events instead. And these are live events via Zoom. So if you want to actually work with me on Zoom, this is a perfect opportunity for you to ask questions, get feedback, all that sort of stuff. And we're doing about a 90-minute masterclass. It's called Speak with Clarity, Confidence, and Conviction, the 5 keys to your speaking success. And we go deep dive into all these voice patterns and how to change them. You'll see underneath this, regardless of what platform you're on, Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, my assistant will put this particular link underneath all of those videos so you can actually register. Now, there's 2 sessions that you can register for. One is in the morning Australia time, one is in the evening Australia time on 2 different days. So check that out. It's on Eventbrite and it's available to register right now. So that's what we're talking about next week. Speak with confidence, clarity, and conviction. So it's lovely to have you here today. If you're watching it on the replay, just put #replay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for chiming in. I love your videos and love how you make it. And I know this is not abortus, this subject, but everyone laughs at me because of my squeaky voice. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that word. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for chiming in today. Squeaky voice. Okay. Ryan, let's talk about squeaky voice. I'm so glad that you chimed in before I switched off today. A squeaky voice means that you have tension. There's tension somewhere. So I'll give you a little tension test, Ryan. This will be a great tension test for you. Are you ready? And this is for anyone else who has throat tension. If you open your throat like the frog breath I was just explaining, and you do this, if you do that sound for me, I call that just the sigh, a sigh with a downward trajectory. So we're going from high to low. Do it with me. You'll hear that my throat is open. There's a lot of airflow coming through my vocal folds too, because my vocal folds are slightly open. They're not completely closed. And I have no tension anywhere in that sound. None. It's all free. Now, when I speak, when I train people with a lot of tension, Ryan, they do this. They literally sound like they're choking to death. That's because your throat muscles are squeezing against your trachea, your windpipe, and squeezing the vocal folds squeezed together like that. So any sort of tension around this area, around your nose, around your jaw, if I really squeak like that, I can make it really squeaky and really small and really, I can make my voice as constricted as I want. But if I want to open my voice, that's what a lot of people say. It doesn't mean anything. But if I want to open my throat, I get a free sounding voice, instead of a tension and restricted sort of sound. So do that tension and release exercise as many times as you can until you can do it with all your vowels and other sounds as well. Start with open vowels, Ryan. Hey, he, ooh. So now I have my throat really open like that frog breath, and that takes away the tension. Now we can actually look at, okay, is my pitch too high? Does that make it squeaky? So because what you call squeaky, I may not. I may hear different things. So when I work with all my students, one of the very first things that I do in all my classes, whether it's group classes or VIP one-on-one training, is I listen to the sound of their voice and I watch what they're doing with their face, their body, and their hands as well. Because all of that, excuse me, tells the story. If I can close my eyes and I can listen to you speak and I can tell exactly what you're doing with your instrument to make those sounds. It's a very unique gift. I don't think that that's something you can necessarily learn, but the more you learn, the more you listen, the more you do, the better you get. I hope that makes sense. So Ryan, I hope that helps you these days. At least first take away that tension so then you can actually look at other things like dropping the pitch. So if you want to make your voice deeper, first you have to get rid of that tension and then go deeper. So you could do this in the morning. It's the best time is in the morning. Hum, 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 hum. You'll notice that I'm dropping my jaw, which makes my voice box drop down. Now I have quite a low voice for a woman because I'm older. You know, I used to have a much higher voice, of course, when I was younger. I used to be a coloratura soprano, which is the highest soprano you can possibly get, like a Mariah Carey sort of range. But nowadays, as a much older woman, my range has dropped. So I get more bottom notes and I have less top notes. So these changes go on with our lives and there's nothing much we can do about it. But we can train our voices to go higher or lower. So I'm very committed on keeping my voice healthy and strong. So I do singing exercises right up to a high C just to keep my voice in check. And I also do singing and speaking exercises right down to a low C so I can reach those 3 octaves quite easily, even at an older age, because I'm pushing 60. So we have to really know our instrument, know what it can do, and know how to take care of it. So if we do this, open, get rid of the tension, hum, 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 hum. I can't go any lower because that's quite low. It's probably a C for me. C3, which is way too low for a girl. Now, just as a disclaimer, I'm using my tummy to drive the sound. And this is what I teach all of my students. We can't do everything in one live, of course. You can't learn everything in one information session, but you will have to practice and implement if you want to get better. I would love to have you in a class one day. I have the Voice Club, remember, which is a wonderful way to get some training at the very lowest investment. But if you want to have some more training and find out what that's all about, then join us next week, because next week we've got our 2 events, which is Speak with Confidence, Clarity, and Conviction. Let me jump over to the banner for a second. We've got Speak with Confidence, Clarity, and Conviction, the 5 keys to your speaking success. So thank you for joining us. It's been lovely to have you here today. Hello. It's nice to see you. It's great to have you. Nad Baba TV. Aw, thank you for joining us. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got some value out of today, make sure you hit the notification bell. Don't miss the next video. I do live trainings every single week. And always, I check the comments, so please comment below if you've got any questions. I look forward to seeing you around on the Voice of Confidence TV. I'm an executive voice coach for business speakers all over the world. Elisa James signing off. I'll see you next time. Bye.